This is something that Glenn Greenwald over at the Intercept was pointing out. Like it's already been floated out that the Russia investigation is not yielding nearly as much as the Democratic Party thought, and you see Democrats backing off slowly but surely, but not fast enough, in my opinion.
How could it have? Okay, so like, how could it possibly have yielded as much as they thought? Have you read the conspiracy theories out there?
Hang on. Like we have to parse this, right? So you have the audience that is tuned in right now, and no matter what Rachel Maddow says, they're going to swear that this was the most illuminating revelation ever. They're going to swear that based on Rachel Maddow report tonight, which is completely empty so far, they're going to swear that Donald Trump needs to be impeached because of this great revelation. I'm not talking about those people who are insane people over there, excuse the ableist language, but forgive me, to the irresponsible people over there on the conservative side. I'm not talking about them. What I'm talking about are the Democrats who played both hands, right? You have Democrats who pandered to this, but then at the same time they're trying to find out if there's anything there legitimately. They're not pandering it. I really have not seen a Democratic leader, official, pander it to the level that the media has. The media has the Democratic Party on the hook for this, and the Democratic Party is getting ready to look even worse than they did on November 8th when Donald Trump beat them, because of all the hype and hysteria around Russia that is starting to pan out to be much ado about nothing so far, right? And you know, there's scales. We'll see. You know, did Russia whatever they did is panning out to not be what they're scaring people with.
That's where I'm disagree with you, right? And so you are right. The Democratic leadership, and you know, your Peter Schiffs, your Barack Obamas, your anybody who like occupies a decently high power position with the Democratic Party, have very carefully chosen their speech. Same with, I would say, some people in the media, they use words like Russia interfered, Russia hacked, Russia influenced the election. They put out this purposely vague and obtuse language that I know people, we're now 2 months out, 3 months out from this. But remember, because of this language right here, in December, there was a poll that showed that 52% of Democrats felt that Russia had literally hacked into the election and changed the vote tally so that Trump would win. And that is the effect of this vague language, right? That people don't know what to make of it. And because it's so vague, they just fill in the blanks. And since that poll has come out, we've seen this constant escalation, this constant elevation of language from people who are, maybe not Al Franken, maybe not Hillary Clinton, but people who, Democratic operatives who have big enough platforms to be problematic. Was it, we have Washington Post editors waxing nostalgically while watching The Americans about the Cold War and how back then things were those halcyon days of yore where things were so simple, and everyone lived in fear of a nuclear holocaust. Or you have other operatives who are pitching forth this idea that perhaps the Republican healthcare plan is actually a Kremlin plot to kill as many Americans as possible by removing their healthcare. Like, this is the kind of ideas that are floating out there on social media, and not just by crazy. Okay, well, not just by crazy people, but not just by crazy people who are, yelling on the street corners on a soapbox saying the end is nigh, but by people who write for the Washington Post and the New York Times and who write these BS think pieces. And so,
well, yeah, because they're the same. I mean, they're the same thing, right? So we've seen the clickbaitization. I'm going to make up a horrible word, but we've seen this evolution towards clickbait that has saturated the Washington Post, the New York Times, and outlets that usually were too bougie to even delve into that tabloid type mentality, except for when they needed money. And right now they need money, so they go with the clickbait. So it's not surprising. I mean, I don't put like the Washington Post in any category greater than BuzzFeed on the average article. Every now and then, these media outlets will come out with some really great investigative journalism, but it's every now and then. Every single day, you get these ridiculous think pieces that should have been just should have stayed in the heads of the writers, and they start sharing all this dribble because it drives clicks. This is all, I mean, so far, and I'm on Twitter, everybody's saying that it's coming up next after the commercial break. So now they're doing the whole damn Walking Dead phenomenon where you sit around and you don't get to see who gets killed until after the first commercial break. Like what the hell is this?
This isn't Walking Dead, because Walking Dead actually had some merit in the first and second season, like as the show went on. This is some Dragon Ball Z nonsense where you're like waiting for the next episode. Well, you're waiting for the next episode, and every episode is a flashback to like when they first got to Namek. What this was. And you're right, though. So a lot of liberal outlets have become this.
Not just liberal, everybody, but yeah, go ahead.
They are beating this drum for war with Russia. They're ignoring the facts. Even that BuzzFeed article, like the first 1/5 of it addresses what the Senate intelligence community said, and then the rest of it said like, oh, here's why that doesn't really matter because Russia is problematic. And so we've gotten to the point where, like you said, we have to parse this out, but it becomes impossible to parse out because we don't know if people are doing this, if the liberal operative, the liberal apparatchik are doing this because they actually believe it, or because it sells papers, or because they are just, trying to construct this mass delusion.
Well, what made me laugh so hard in the middle of what you're saying is the fact that this just shows how freaking incompetent the resistance is, right? This so-called resistance. I don't even like giving them credit for that name, right? If this is number one, if you don't understand it's just some basic journalism, right? Some basic journalistic standards that you do not overhype a story because it backfires on you. There's never an example where that doesn't happen. You cannot overhype a story and have it explode in your face. Same thing with Rachel Maddow. We can extrapolate to the entire Democratic Party. They're and the entire liberal media infrastructure. They're hyping up Russia to be something more than what they can deliver. And ultimately, it does great for them in the short run for clicks and money and income, revenue streams, all that. It's great, but it completely undermines their ability and the legitimacy of their fight against Donald Trump. Now they're hoping for their audience to be forgiving and just move on and kind of tuck that knee in and take it on the chin and keep moving and act as though it didn't happen. But they're doing it at the expense of real issues that should be talked about right now, today. Like the fact that you have a sitting president who will not condemn that the words of Steve King, who clearly is a white nationalist, white genocide believing racist, and he won't. And yes, he has, and now you have a president who won't condemn it.
Exactly.
Right. And so if you want some low hanging fruit to be able to attack the president, there you go. Right. But instead of this long overarching arc of this Russia story, it's at the point where, you got to deliver, and not being able to deliver really invalidates you. It invalidates your legitimacy all day.
Well, there's two things there. Well, and before those two things, but this, it's like there's the old saying, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and they don't have extraordinary evidence. And so what they're trying to do, and this is why the resistance is failing, or rather why it can't succeed, is because the democratic leadership, both in the media and in the political sphere, have conditioned their liberal rank and file, like their most ignited Clinton voters, that the most important way to resist, the only path to resistance, is the quickest path to impeach. The quickest path to impeach Trump, or rather, because Russia is but another in a series of complicated Wile E. Coyote schemes to prevent Trump from becoming president or to remove him from president. And I say Wile E. Coyote because it's needlessly complex and has a huge potential to backfire. The first one was the Hamilton electors, right? Like that Hamilton elector nonsense was the first evidence that the Democratic Party is constructing these schemes to get Trump out of
unstable.
There are these very, very complex schemes to get Trump out of office without any heed paid to the long-term consequences if those schemes were to succeed. Because the alternative is to construct a proactive policy agenda. To do what Bernie Sanders is doing, going around town hall, talking about policy, talking about universal healthcare, talking about rebuilding American infrastructure, but they can't do that, right? They can't create a coherent policy agenda because of this huge schism within their party. So the only way they know to fight Trump is with these schemes. And like, let's talk about it again. Who is this Russia stuff aimed at? This Russia stuff is aimed at Clinton voters. It's aimed at, the liberal elite who failed the election, and it's aimed at Republicans. Right, like this Russia stuff is another attempt to shave off Republican support for Donald Trump, and of course it's going to work because you have Republicans like John McCain, who is a war hawk, who has never known a country he didn't want to bomb or go to war with, and you have Lindsey Graham, who is just prone to hysterics whenever he talks about geopolitics. So this sort of stuff appeals to him, but it's poorly targeted insofar that it's not aimed at the people who the Democratic Party needs to be trying to win over again. And I would go so far to say, if it were not for issues of national security and that this should be investigated to a less intense degree, that they should just drop it altogether. They should just drop it altogether and focus on winning special elections and midterm elections through constructing proactive policy agenda. But
it's amazing. It's amazing because you said something and you kind of went right past it. But I think it's the most important thing that you've said so far that's been said, period, tonight.
Lindsey Graham is
no, Lindsey Graham is Lindsey Graham. No, the fact that you juxtapose all in with Chris Hayes last night with Bernie Sanders to this bullshit from Rachel Maddow. And I call it bullshit because I just cut it on and listened to it for like another 60 seconds. And David K. Johnson, who's actually a great journalist and a great writer. I think David K. Johnson might be a little upset with how much Rachel Maddow is hyping this up because the information that he has would amount to a decent article. A decent article for a critique of Donald Trump getting some kind of special deductions on paying less in taxes than he should, right? That's a decent article. It is not breaking news to make the whole nation stand on pins and needles to see who are we going to get them. So juxtapose this hysteria to what Bernie Sanders was doing in the town hall meeting last night. This is what the Democrats should be doing, but they're not smart enough. They're They're too opportunistic, and they want the low-hanging fruit, and they're just not competent. I don't care what it is, malicious or incompetence. I don't care. They are not equipped to lead this resistance because they're not doing the actual tangible things that would get Donald Trump out of office in 4 years and get the majority out of the hands of the Republican Party in 2 years. They're not doing that. They're doing this hysterical hysteria.
Well, I don't think they're incompetent. I think that they are unable to address the huge schism that exists within the Democratic Party that is the result of an ideological difference between the base and the elites. And insofar they cannot do that, they have to focus on these relatively shallow issues, and they have to. And also, this is an issue of pride, right? This whole Russia thing is very insularly focused on trying to ease the pride of those Democratic operatives who lost the race. Your Nate Silvers, your Joy Reids, your Tandons, your John Podestas, your Hillary Clintons, because though it's always framed in this sort of for Trump to win, Russia would have had there has to be this vast international conspiracy for Trump to win. The opposite.
Actually, no, for Trump to win, all that had to happen was Hillary Clinton not go and campaign in Wisconsin.
Of course, the opposite of that is just what they're really saying is that for us to lose would require a vast conspiracy. It's like that. That's the opposite of that coin. Where it's I
wonder.
Occam's razor.
Finish that thought. I'm sorry.
Occam's razor, right? Once you start yourself constructing vast conspiracies to justify a very simple, binary situation, I won or I lost. You find yourself, you're just making excuses, and that's why I said that even if the Russia thing was true, and this is where I become, complete. I start to sound a little crazy, right? Even if the Russia thing was true to a moderate degree, like Russia had hacked into the DNC, had hacked Podesta, and released this quote unquote propaganda. Even if that were true, from the political expedient standpoint of actually winning the election in 2018, they should still drop it because a lot of those things had no effect on the outcome of the election. A lot of those things, even if Russia did it, it had no effect on people not coming out to vote in Wisconsin or in Ohio or in Pennsylvania or in Michigan. And so, it might be important to national security that Russia's trying to do this, but in terms of the Democrats actually winning the election, it really doesn't have much importance.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And I'm not, and I don't think I have to get this disclaimer anymore. I'm not on the side of this equation that said there's no way Russia did this. These the immature left. I'm trying to find a non-ableist way to describe this portion of the left that is who they are. That just, no matter what happens, they're going to take the opposite side of the Democratic Party, even if it means, ignoring the fact that they don't have any evidence. They have just as much evidence that Russia didn't do it as the Democratic Party has evidence that they did do it. Nobody has evidence right now. Investigation should take place.
Period. That's not fair.
Period.
That's it. You can't demand someone prove a negative. Yes, but I agree with you. The contrary.
No, they're inserting that into the national conversation as a fact, right? They're inserting a negative into the conversation as a fact, when in fact that they're presenting something that is in itself not provable. And so the whole point is just, instead, if you're going to be true to your logic, right there, the most important thing to them is that, you have to be consistent, but you're being logically inconsistent if you're standing on no evidence, right? You're standing on zero evidence, just like the Democratic Party is standing on no evidence. So everyone needs to just shut the hell up and let some evidence come. That's what I'm saying. So I'm definitely, as you could tell, I'm definitely not a part of that cohort, that cabal that rejects the idea that this is even possible, that Russia was involved. In the middle with majority, like you, like most reasonable, like, I don't think it had any major effect on the election, but prove me wrong. If you have the evidence, let's see and let's talk about it. Get an investigation.
It should be de-emphasized but investigated. I think that's we can come to that agreement.
And even for political intelligence, like what you just said, demonstrates more political acumen and intelligence than the Democratic Party has at this point. And this is why I say they're not equipped to lead. They're not equipped to lead because even if Russia was involved, right, you don't oversell your silver bullet. You don't try to make your silver bullet be an adamantium bullet. You let it do exactly what it can do and you keep moving. And the Democrats, instead of doing that, they're trying to make this magical bullet be a cure-all to all of their problems, and when it's not even able to address 1% of their underlying problems, which is what Bernie Sanders has been doing after this election. He's been going town hall by town hall, city by city, convincing the people that they vote against their own best interest with Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, that's why I think we should move on to the next story eventually. But that's where I would say that you're probably right, that they are incompetent, but that incompetence is based in pride, right? That they cannot accept the fact that their models were off, that their polls were off. And I mean, even back in the primary, I was criticizing Nate Silver. I was like, Nate Silver does bad math. And someone's like, you can't. Math is always objective. And I was like, yeah, no, it's not, right? Math is objective, but statistics, insofar as you determine them, is very subjective. And what Nate Silver is, he is a decent, above average, pretty good, a great, amazing, stop wherever you like, statistician and a below average sociologist and demographer.
Yeah.
And he pretends like he's good at the latter, but he's only really good at the former. And now he's come out in recent days and go like, maybe we were in a bubble. And I'm like, yeah, you were in a bubble.
No, sure.
And like, everyone have woken to the fact, or rather they appeared to have woken to the fact that, hey, just because everyone I knew was okay with voting for Clinton, perhaps that's not a good that's not a good horizontal slice of society.